Hello, everybody. My name is Sam Pritchard. I'm the marketing manager at Major Events International. And today I'm very happy to be joined by Karen Webb Moss, who's chair of British Swimming, amongst many other things. Karen, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, certainly. Karen, as you just said, and chair of, we're now known as Aquatics GB, but we're
Right.
still formally British Swimming Limited.
Mm.
So I'm chair of Aquatics GB, and I'm also chair of More Than Equal. And the other days I fill by consulting for various people, mostly back in the Middle East.
Brilliant. Okay, so first question I want to ask you is what inspired you to join More Than Equal? And for you, what are the main goals of the initiative?
Okay. Well, I think any time somebody that you know and respect, like David Coulthard,
Mm.
or also one of the co-founders and also on my board at More Than Equal, Kate Bevan, says to you, we're starting an initiative to find and develop the first female F1 champion. It kind of knocked, it actually quite, made me quiet for a little bit, and then,
Mm.
wow, well, of course, of course,
Yes,
I'm
yeah.
interested. So I think that, I've been 30 years or so plus
Mm.
in sport. And I think what I learnt from the, listening to David Coulthard, Carol Kamarek, who's the founder and our funder, and Kate, it just shocked me that, F1, high profile, global, sexy brand, high tech,
Mm.
so advanced. We all love it. Well, a lot of us who've always loved F1 love it. And just the aspect that, I don't know if I ever really knew that women were legally allowed to enter F1. And of course they are. So for me, it feels like with the progress made by football, the progress being made by rugby, by cricket, there's still a long way to go. But it really does appear that this is a mixed gender neutral sport like equestrian and sailing, and yet we haven't seen a woman drive in F1 for around 50 years.
Yeah.
So it feels a bit of a cliche, like it's one of the last glass ceilings in sport. And I've always liked being innovated. I've always liked doing stuff that's good profile, and I'm passionate about. And I just thought the opportunity to play my part
Mm.
in giving girls equal opportunities. We're not about making it easier for women. We're about making it as equally difficult for girls who are karting or getting into karting to get to F1.
Brilliant. So, what do you think are the biggest barriers facing women in sport, particularly in elite competitions like F1, which has been so male dominated since pretty much since it started? And how is More Than Equal addressing those challenges?
Okay, well, this is, it's not only gut feeling and what we've
Mm.
learned from speaking to experts. One of the first things we did to really reassure, to establish our vision and mission, but to reassure that what we think is a very much needed business and mission was backed by some facts and figures. So we commissioned the first ever research into the scale and scope of the barriers for girls and women in F1. So, in a nutshell, it's the culture, and it's
Mm.
not just the culture up at F1, but the culture in karting, the stereotypes, the stereotypes that girls are not strong enough, the neck strength's not strong enough to withstand G forces. We don't have the cognitive ability. So that there's certainly culture stereotypes, lack of opportunities, lack of an obvious lack of role models, but
Mm.
lack of an obvious pathway. So obviously in elite sport and Olympic sport, and particularly my sports of swimming, diving, there is an obvious progression and pathway, and there is training and opportunities from when you begin. But what's really missing is the talent pool of girls participating in karting is tiny,
Mm.
and then obviously you've got a participation gap, but you've got a huge performance gap. And I think the biggest barrier that we're addressing is developing the first female specific 360 holistic
Mm.
driver development program, and there's been nothing like that done in motorsport.
Yeah. So, how do you identify and nurture the talent through More Than Equal? And have you, what partnerships have been or programs have been key to driving that success so far with the program?
Yeah, well, interesting. Identifying talent is really difficult. And
Yeah,
what surprises us for a high-tech, sector of sport like F1 is that even finding those talented boys, those Lewis Hamiltons and
yeah,
Maxes and Oscars, etc. A lot of it is word of mouth, and that there is very little, there's no algorithm, there's very
mm,
little data that's captured. So one of the first things we had to do is how do we talent search? How do we find that talent and identify girls that not only are in karting, but those not just are winning. If you only pick the girls that are winning in karting, the data and the available evidence is very little. So we wanted to look for girls with potential. And because the reality is there are, as I said, very few, maybe 4 or 5% of those karting and driving are girls. A lot of the ASNs around the world are not tracking that data. Some of them are not even gender marked. We don't know. It might put, S Pritchard, but we don't know if that S is a
yeah,
Susie, a Sam, or a Samantha. So there is a need, and we've been speaking with the FIA about this. So we developed with one of the industry's best data engineers, Rob Smedley. We've worked with Rob to identify an algorithm that could look at all of this, that could gather what's already available, but go further through motorsport around the world, through a huge communication effort and push by us. To get people to apply, and we mixed, we had a number of criteria, but we were looking importantly for potential, because sometimes the girls are not even finishing on track. They can be pushed off the track by boys who prefer to smash their own car in than get beaten by a girl. And I know we kind of laugh at that, but
mm,
unfortunately that is the culture, and that's
yeah,
very real, which in 2024 is somewhat surprising. So we had about 500-600 girls, young women apply,
oh, really,
and out of this, we put that into this huge algorithm. We had to interview them, get to know the families, girls, had to look at their support network. It's an expensive sport for girls
yeah,
or boys,
mm,
and unfortunately the reality is, while we are investing in them and in the driver development program, the family still needs to give them that support. So that's how we've started to find our girls. We have a cohort of the initial 6
mm.
from every corner of the world, from the UK to Australia to Malaysia, and then we have another 8 to 10 on the watch list who are benefiting from some of our female driver development training.
Brilliant. So I know that the main goal of More Than Equal is finding a female F1 world champion. And what else? What does success look like for More Than Equal in changing the culture from the culture of the sport away from just finding that the F1 champion? How do you measure the progress in terms of the
Yes.
inclusivity and everything?
Really good question, Sam. It's not a quick fix. I mean, if we
No.
haven't seen a woman in F1 for nearly 50 years, we estimate, or some of the experts that we're working with estimate, that we're looking at 8 to 10, 12 years to get that there. And even though it sounds like a singular, bold, some have said, unrealistic vision, that purpose, to just get one. You can imagine if we could get one into Formula One,
Yeah.
what that means for opening it up for more girls. So success looks like data proven progression of the girls who are driving, and we're working on that now, working with some of the best IT tech people, as well as Rob Smedley and Hintsa, who are a driver development, and they work with a lot of athletes in British cycling or other. We're working with them. So success is about the girls that we have on the cohort progressing. They're not all going to get there, but we have to show, for credibility and also to make sure that we are looking inwards and knowing that our program works, look at those seconds of progression, the strength training, their nutrition, everything we can learn. And the most important thing is that girls develop differently. And so
Yeah.
there will be at a certain time, we're carrying out some research on the hormonal impact of you know, that kind of development in youth. So success looks like the progression of girls, that what we're doing is right. Respect and support and investment from the industry or from others. You know, this is not it's not a cheap thing to do. So that continual investment. So profile and working with some of the teams, like, you know, that we've had many positive conversations to say these people know how to find the talent, they know how to develop the talent. We'll work with them and we will take that talent, because, you know, many have said to us, if she's fast, we'll put her in a helmet, we'll put her in a seat. We don't care, male or female, it's got to be fast. But what we're doing is that obviously things, you know, programs like F1 Academy, that's great for the profile of female drivers, but it's women versus women in sort of F4, F3-ish lower spec cars. We want girls to compete against boys, women to compete against men.
Yes. You touched on it briefly before about the importance of role models in sport. I mean, I'm no professional, but I know growing up, the role models you play have such an impact in why you want to play the sport and everything. And you, without Aquatics GB, and you said with diving, you've got like your Tom Daly, Adam
Yeah.
Peaty, who are brilliant and massive advocates. When you think of women in motorsport, there's not that, you don't have those role models. So with the F1 Academy, it's great. You've got people like Jamie Chadwick coming through, really quick drivers. So what? Yeah, how are we trying to inspire those next generation of girls without those
Mm.
role models? Is that another initiative, I guess, of More Than Equal, is creating those role models?
Yeah, I mean, we all know, and that's become a cliche, but if you can't see it, you can't be
Yeah,
it. Like, look what the Lionesses have done for girls
yeah,
in
exactly.
football and grassroots sports. Women playing cricket, women now succeeding in, you know, the Roses, the England female rugby team, they're
Mm.
smashing it, you know.
Yeah, they're
So I
brilliant.
think when you see it, what it does is it opens it up. I mean, even let's just say, you know, I've spent my summer at the Olympic and Paralympic Games in my role, you know, so privileged to be able to support my team. And you see, you know, Maisie Newton Summers, who came back with a host of golds.
Yeah.
And it means you think, gosh, even someone, I mean, she's you know, swims in the dwarf category. You know what, it does. I've seen guys who, you know, females and males, they have amputees, they have no arms, no legs,
Mm.
and they swim breaststroke. And, you know, it was a Brazilian guy, and he's on the podium dancing and even twerking to the crowd.
Yeah.
That man is the happiest man in the world.
Oh
And there was
yeah.
nothing. It's always inspiring watching Olympians and Paralympians of any ability,
Mm.
but nothing can hold you back. And now if you are a, you know, you're a kid that has cerebral palsy, or you know, you are missing an
Mm.
arm or a leg, nothing can stop you. It's just about access and
Yeah.
opportunity. And
Uh,
that's why the pools have to be kept open. That's why
mm.
we need girls to try karting. You know,
Yeah.
and I'm sure even if I'd turned around to my parents and said, oh, instead of a My Little Pony, you know, 8th birthday present, can I go on a karting track? You know, they would have been shocked. But if
Yeah.
my children ask me that now, hell yeah, I'll give them a
Yeah.
chance. And
Exactly.
that's what Carol Kamarick, who is, you know, a generous benefactor and supporter. He has two girls and two boys, and he didn't want to be the dad that said to his two girls, "You can't do what the boys, their brothers
Mm.
can do."
Yeah.
So that, you know, that is really important, and we are learning. We're evolving every day, because the more we learn, the more about data and technology, the more feedback we get. But we're also learning from other sports. You know, in many ways, football, rugby. You know, Ali, the CEO we appointed, she's from rugby,
Mm.
and you know, and from Swim England. I'm not from motorsport. I'm from the elite, you know, Olympic, Paralympic world. But we learn from all of these sports, and we know in diving and gymnastics, we have some of the youngest females. You can't coach the girls the same as the boys.
No.
At some point, you have to coach them differently
Yeah. It's
and as
completely.
appropriate, age appropriate, you know, skill appropriate, all of that, body appropriate.
Exactly. So, I mean, you've had experience. You said over 30 years experience in multiple different sports and different countries and things. With these initiatives, what do you think is the most important factor in ensuring this is a long-term, sustainable success that you're trying to get? What initiatives are most important for that?
For sport in general, Sam, or
Yeah,
for
for
more
sport in
than
general and
equal?
for More Than Equal. For initiatives like More Than Equal, what is the key to that long-term success? Is it partnering with the big brands, the big sponsors, governing bodies, or just getting the message out there? That kind of.
I think it's probably a bit of all of that.
Yeah.
First of all, I think it's about being really focused, and having a genuine raison d'etre, or a genuine mission. So you need that focus to know what you're doing. We can't do everything. A small team in Hammersmith, we can't do everything.
Yeah.
So for us, of course, we need more race strategists that are women. We already have two leading voices in Red Bull and Mercedes, although most people don't know that.
Yeah.
They're not featured on Drive to Survive, are they?
No,
But
no.
but I think it's we of course, Kate's worked in, when she was at F1, she's worked in sort of F1 in schools. You need all of that. We need more women to go and study engineering, physics, chemistry. We need more women to study that at uni and then go into these fields, more awareness of that. But for us, I think all of that opens if you start to see competitive girls, women competing against men and actually progressing.
Yes.
So I think it's about it is that focus, sticking to what we believe, listening, learning, evolving, very important, flexibility, and then yes, investment and partnering. And it may be like we've done, working with the best, like Rob Smedley or Hintsa for the driver development program. And if Hintsa hasn't got all the answers, it's about finding that female nutritionist that it can, or that nutritionist focused on female nutrition. It's also about, maybe it's not a big brand, although that would just be divinely welcome to more than equal. It could be that value in kind from the technology leader that says, I can see what you're trying to do with your talent ID algorithm. I think we could extend this. We are talking to a number of companies, but so it is very much partnership with experts and expertise and good products and services we need. And then, as we are speaking to a few brands who kind of say, we love what you're doing. We think that your purpose is very much aligned to what we want to do about the development of our own women in the workforce, or whatever. So and then the last bit is that we are non-profit, and we are awaiting the decision of the England and Wales Charities Commission, because I believe that there is, research into this area, data into whether, design of the car, the equipment, very little of that has been done. So we want to use a charity arm and more than equal to really have this research focus and become the sort of central library for research into women and developing girls and women in sport.
Okay. So moving on to your experience within the events industry as a whole, putting on these mega events like the Olympics. These are, I don't know of an event which is bigger than the Olympics that gets put on. I think it's the biggest one. How has the bidding for all these mega events changed over, like, what advice do you give to cities, organisations looking to host future global events, and how has it changed since 20 years ago, and now people looking for something completely different? What has that change been like in hosting these just massive events?
Oh, that's spot on question. There's been significant change.
Yeah.
I since I joined the Sydney 2000 organising committee as like employee number 16 or whatever I was, to working 9 years at the ISC, and then, as you know, on to working with various bids. What's really changed is the number of countries that can financially justify putting on. It's 28 sports. It's like putting on 28
Crazy,
world
yeah.
championships in the same city at the same time. If we're talking about the summer games. So for me, it's strong reason why, an even stronger, genuine social, economic, country, nation, physical legacy. It has to be about benefit to the development of your own society, and what you give back, and to the open access to sport. It has to have and of course I'd say this because I'm the sort of the international relations come overall communications advisor on some of these bids, that sort of authentic, compelling narrative You know, why does it make sense? And the biggest change, as you mentioned, the Olympics, and is the new approach, is the Olympic agenda 2020,
Yeah.
you know, plus. And it's no longer reasonable, in fact, how many nations could afford it, to build all these shiny venues. You
Mm.
know, it's become more about, so youth focused, repurposing or reusing venues, temporary venue structure, more urban, you know, particularly there's an urban approach, and the development and inclusion of sports which makes sense and that will be played afterwards. So I think that you know, sustainability, gosh, you know, even in Sydney, we thought we were a green games. That doesn't mean anything to compare to what
Mm.
Paris has just achieved and committed to, what London achieved and committed to. You know, that sustainability, whether that's social sustainability, venue sustainability, or environmental sustainability, is also something that's changed enormously.
I know earlier you mentioned you're working like Middle East and things, and recently over the past few years, the massive investment from the Middle East in with sport and everything, and what you touched upon there about building new stadiums and implementing it. What are the long-term benefits and potential challenges for countries like the Middle East who have to create this all from scratch, it seems, in investing in these major sporting events whilst trying to be sustainable? It
Yeah.
seems like such a hard line to walk upon in terms of wanting to put on these major events, but not having the already the infrastructure there or what have you there. So,
Yes.
yeah, what are the potential challenges for
Because
their?
they're old cultures and old
Mm,
land, but they're
yeah,
new cities, you know.
exactly.
And so, God, I could talk a lot about this. I'm going to try, because I lived in Qatar for
Oh, well,
8 years, and now I work primarily back advising the Middle East, either on event bidding or on strategies
mm,
for what they need to do. Um, the benefits, let's start from scratch, is that I know there's a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of, you know, negativity, and I know, sort of working on the FIFA World Cup with the Qatari
yeah,
leadership, you know, it can be very challenging. So one, I think that there's an overarching, when I talk about vision and strategy, that people don't realize, is that for most of these countries, for Qatar, for Saudi, Abu Dhabi, sport is one of their fundamental pillars for the progression and
mm,
development of their society and their country. It's usually sport, health, and education. They have an overwhelmingly young population in the Arab speaking world, far
mm,
younger than us. And, you know, opening up, I mean, and something else that's often misunderstood, football's huge in the Middle East. It always
yeah,
was, before they even bid for World Cup or whatever. There are hundreds of clubs, and a huge, you know, particularly with football. Basketball is a growing sport, as in some of the others. But so they are sports fans. But the risk is, if they don't address this, they're going to have a very huge millions of young people that don't do much apart from video games and whatever. So sport is really a core pillar for
mm,
the healthy, you know, healthy active lifestyle development. Um, so often the benefits and the reason why they're doing this is their genuine societal issues. Even if you link, for example, the more sport we all do, the less sort of health risks that
yeah,
we have. And also in their countries, I can talk, you know, specifically about Qatar. There's been an
yeah,
increase of health issues related to, you know, diabetes, heart problems, cancer, and along with that, sort of less sport. So the younger generation, they want to participate, they want to do more sport, and the facilities over there are phenomenal.
mm.
Paddle has just gone through the roof.
Oh, it's
I'm
crazy. Yeah,
talking paddle as in, you know,
mm, mm,
the racket, the game. So for them, it's about the development of their country, providing facilities that opens up sport for all. The development of girls in Saudi and in Qatar now. You'll see basketball in girls' schools. You'll
mhm,
see football. Football is, you know, they, and the young new leaders in these countries, many of whom are women, because I work with a couple of them in Saudi. You
mm,
know, they're getting schools has to have a mandatory sport, you know, in within their timetable. So I think it's, you know, part of their nation's vision. Sport is part of that growth, and realizing their young people have to do, You know, they have to have these opportunities for a healthy
Mm.
society.
Okay, so I mean, again, we'll go. Your career's been very expansive and accomplished and everything. I mean, with that always brings challenges and significant challenges, either in the work with these mega events or advocating for women in sport. Can you give me an example of a challenge and like how you overcame it with running these events? Maybe your time in Qatar, like you mentioned. What are some challenges that you face? Maybe repeat challenges that you face that you have
Mm.
to deal with.
Actually, that's a good thing. Repeat challenges.
Mm.
Every Olympic Games I've worked on, whether I've been at the IOC working on with three, four organizing committees at the time, or being Sydney organizing committee, or working with the then mayor on London 2012, anytime you host such a mega global sporting event, you shine a spotlight on your own politics, your own
Yeah.
society,
Mm.
your own economic situation. So
Mm.
I see the same old, you know, and I can sort of eye roll and try and reassure
Mm.
organizing committees that you will get this, you know, opposition to building
Mm.
venues. You might get opposition to where money is going. Why are sponsors putting X into this when they've laid off people elsewhere and whatever? You know, that comes with the power of sport and the power of the impact and the opportunity of impact of sport. But you know, it brings with it global scrutiny, and that's something else that's changed in the bidding world, is that you are under so much scrutiny. You know, there's nowhere to hide, because if you are
Yeah.
putting it out there to host, you know, I think one of the best sporting global mega complex sporting events in the world, like the Olympics, but it comes with strong values of excellence, friendship, respect. You know, it's why I've probably spent most of my life working
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the Olympics. So the challenges are that global scrutiny. The challenges are definitely about cost.
Yeah.
And when I think about working in Qatar, it was relentless media bashing, relentless,
Mm.
you know,
It did seem. I remember. Yeah.
misunderstanding of,
Everything.
yeah.
There was
And
so
people
much.
say, oh
And
gosh, Karen, you've drunk the Kool-Aid. But I lived there. My kids
yeah.
went to school, to British schools there in the Middle East. I've lived
Mm.
there. I see young Qataris that want to progress, they want to develop. And what, you know, we have to respect that they're grounded in family, faith, you know, all of
Mm.
those, while wanting to be a modern, you know, a lot of the kids, you know, your age, where they're studying overseas, but they come back to give back
Yeah.
to Qatar to lead. It's not just expats who come with this expertise and then we all leave and they're left hanging. Most of these young people are bright, well educated, and they want their country, their region to be a world-class player.
Mm.
But the challenges can be, you know, imagine how boring it would be if the Olympic Games was hosted in, I don't know, just one country every
Yeah.
time.
It wouldn't be the same, would it?
And
Yeah.
people suggest that. People say, why don't we just stay in Athens, because it's the home of the ancient Olympic Games, or Greece is the home of the ancient Olympia. And why do we move around so much?
Mm.
But we wouldn't get that richness. You wouldn't get the overlay of what Paris has just done.
Yeah.
You wouldn't get what was special. You wouldn't get the Queen jumping out of the
Oh,
helicopter.
exactly.
Do you
Exactly.
know? You
I
don't.
remember.
That way, we get culture, we get diversity, we get richness, and the Olympic, you know, values and the best
Mm.
athletes in the world get to travel around the world.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's such a, for me, some of my most core memories of watching live events came from London 2012 and watching events that I would never ever have seen if I didn't we got a ticket. Oh, what was it? It was like diving, 3 meter springboard diving. I knew diving, but I'd never been, and it was so great getting to come and watch a sport that any other time I don't think I would have thought about, and it was so amazing to see and the intricacies about it. So
Yeah.
I think yeah, keeping it in one place isn't. It needs to go around. It needs to go and inspire these people to be like, oh, you know what, I could do that kind of
At the
thing.
same time, you cannot be complacent. The
Yeah.
IOC host nation, nobody can be complacent. If
Mm.
there's no, you know, if a sport has not progressed, if it hasn't got equal opportunity, if it isn't played or competed in by, you know, countless, a mix of different nations. You know, rugby sevens, brilliant addition. I did work on that bid as well, but a brilliant addition to the Olympic
Oh, great.
program,
Mm.
because we gives the chance for Tonga, or you know, the
Mm.
Cook Islands, or you know, Fiji to win medals, and
Mm.
otherwise we may not see those kind of countries. So sport has to modernize. And if it's no longer of relevance and it has no media interest or young people interest, then that sport may have to go and get off the Olympic program and make way for those that are more relevant, more appealing.
Mm. And just finally, I want to ask, as a mentor and advocate for women in sport throughout your whole career, what advice do you give for young women hoping to break into these leadership roles in the sport industry across the world? What advice would you give them?
Oh, um, it's interesting. I often, when I think about things like this, I think what I wish somebody would have told the younger
Yeah.
Karen, even the Karen at the Sydney Organising Committee, or the young, I was one of the first female senior managers at the IOC, and certainly one of the first to go off and have a baby, and one of the first to come from an organising committee. I wish I'd have told myself to trust my judgment, to trust sometimes your instinct, to
Mm.
always be open and learn. And one thing I do tell, and I'm on a number of mentor programs, is listen and learn, take every opportunity.
Mm.
Sometimes, I interview people, or young people will come and work with us, and yeah, you've graduated and you think the world owes you a living. Not you, Sam, but some.
Yes.
And they're not prepared to muck in. I did a
Mm.
degree, a postgrad, later on in life, an MBA, and I still am, 2 a.m. eating pizza, sat on the floor, stuffing envelopes with the rest of the team.
That's good to know.
It's yeah, yeah. No, don't. I'm not doing that the night before the conference, let me tell you. I might. If you need the hand, I'm
Yeah.
still willing. But I think it's about taking every opportunity. Volunteer for something. Not you might just get. I've worked with young people who volunteered, to work with a sponsor at a games, or at the Commonwealth Games, or Rugby World Cup, work with a sponsor in hospitality. And from there on, they've changed their careers and they've gone into that. And they now work for, I'm thinking one in particular who I think she would call me a mentor. She's now a vice president of one of the world's biggest sort of
Wowee.
sponsorship agencies. It's about, having a go and being a little bolder sometimes. Try, write to people, attend talks by people, try and, there's so many online forums, there are so many women in sport, the Sport Collective, there are so many opportunities, SIGA, Global Women's Program. And I think I've spoken to women on the SIGA program, they come from Africa, South Africa, Honduras, all these young women, either just starting in or they want to work in sport.
Mm.
And it is about, I had some great mentors, not many women. I had some great male mentors. And we need, you hear it a lot, we need allies, but you need blokes who say, God, she's good. She's got potential. I'm giving her
Mm.
an equal chance. And I had that. I've had a lot of pitfalls and
Yeah.
politics and crap like we've all, often sadly faced, but you learn from them, and I've got such resilience. Otherwise, I don't think I'd have survived working in sport in Australia, and being
Mm.
a COO of a company in Qatar, blessed and supported by a sheikh, a
Yes.
male who let me run his business.
Mm.
Amazing.
Mm. Exactly, exactly. Well, that's great. Thank you so much for talking to me. You can, Katie's
Thank you,
talking at
Sam.
the event summit on the 8th of October. I'll include in the links below and we'll be talking more about this and everything. But yeah, thank you so much, Kate. That's been great.
All right. Brilliant. Take care.
Thank you.